London is home to architecturally stunning churches and cathedrals, and its places of worship are extraordinarily diverse, which is fitting for this most multicultural of world capitals. Over the centuries, many churches have been lost to fire and to war, but London still retains a wealth of religious sites renowned for their beauty and for their historical importance.
Westminster Abbey is an architectural masterpiece which lies at the heart of English history. Thousands of people visit the Abbey every day to see the monuments, the memorials, Poets' Corner, and the tomb of the unknown warrior. A monastery was established here in the 10th century, but it was really Edward the Confessor in the 11th century who rebuilt the monastery and built a substantial church on the site. Unfortunately, this, the east range of the cloisters, is the only bit of Edward's building that remains. His church was finished in December 1065, just 8 days before he died, and when William the Conqueror turned up, he used it for his own coronation. And the Abbey has been the setting for every monarch's coronation ever since. Edward's 11th century church was rebuilt 200 years later by Henry III, and various bits have been added over the centuries, including the famous towers, completed in 1745.
One man who knows all about the Abbey is the consultant archaeologist Warwick Rodwell. Warwick, tell me about this floor, which we're not allowed to walk on, are we?
No, this is one of the greatest treasures of the Abbey. It was laid in 1268, and it is a remarkable mosaic of a type which is extremely rare in the Middle Ages, and it comes originally from Italy, the design and the style, and it was laid at the behest of King Henry III.
So is there a name for this general style?
Yes, it's a mosaic work which we call Cosmati work. Cosmati was an Italian family that specialised in laying this sort of work in the Middle Ages.
This intricate mosaic is made up of incredibly rare precious stones which can't be found in Britain.
This red porphyry only occurs in Egypt, and the beds are now gone. What happened, of course, is that in the Roman period, all this was used for great imperial buildings. Then in the Middle Ages, we and others went and looted them of their stone. And so this red stone has already done duty in a Roman building somewhere in the Mediterranean.
Right.
And it was then removed by salvage contractors in the 13th century, who sold it to Henry III, who brought it here and used it in the pavement.
Do you think the Italians are going to want it back?
I think they sold it, probably. But we may not have the receipt any longer.
Wow. So, Warwick, where are we now?
We're at the far east end of the Abbey, beyond the high altar, in what is known as the Chapel of Henry VII, or the Lady Chapel.
Okay, and it's obviously a rather nice space, but is there anything special about it?
It's a magnificent space, but the greatest glory of it is if we look up and see what we have above us, the ceiling.
Fantastic.
This is known as a fan vault. This is a stone vault of the most intricate and complex kind ever built.
Wow, that is truly amazing. But this was the early 1500s, yes?
Yes, built in the first few years of the 1500s.
How on earth did they do it?
It's a very complex structure. An awful lot of scaffolding and woodwork was required, and you can best see how it's put together by going up on top and looking at the upper side of the vault.
Can we do that?
We can do that.
Let's go. So we've come up about 5,000 steps on a very narrow stone spiral staircase. Warwick, where are we now?
We're on top of the vault of Henry VII's chapel.
You mean on top of that beautiful ceiling?
We are standing on top of that wonderful carved ceiling with those great pendant bosses and all that detail.
But there's something holding us up, not just the ceiling.
No, it just holds itself up.
Are we going to fall through?
Well, I hope not. It's been here for quite a while.
Are you sure there's nothing underneath?
All that's underneath is the floor 70 feet below us.
Can we see through?
We can see through, yes. There happens to be a little spy hole here, and you can look through.
There are people. There
Yes.
are people down there directly under. Oh God, we mustn't drop anything through, must we?
No, you can also see, look how thin the vault is.
3 inches. I'm getting back on. This is thicker here, isn't it?
That's thicker, yes. It's only 3 inches thick there. It's nowhere more than 4 inches thick, the webs of the vault. It had to be kept very light, otherwise the weight would have pushed the walls out.
The ceiling is supported by a hidden arch. The keystone is both part of the arch and part of the structure. The other stones are cut precisely to fit together, and once the keystone is dropped in, the entire structure is locked in place and becomes self-supporting. If you took the keystone out, the entire ceiling would collapse.
This is truly amazing. I've never seen anything like it.
No, and you won't, because it is unique. It is something that was very cleverly designed, and it was described in 1542 as the wonder of the entire world.
Westminster Abbey has survived for over 700 years, but many other medieval churches were destroyed in the Great Fire of 1666. After the fire, the brilliant Christopher Wren built 52 new churches, and his legacy still helps to define the skyline of London.
This is St Stephen Walbrook, which was Christopher Wren's own local parish church. He lived just round the corner. Now, it looks rather dull on the outside, but inside he took tremendous trouble over the construction.
St Stephen Walbrook, in the heart of the city, is also famous as the birthplace of the Samaritans. In 1953, the rector, Dr. Chad Varra, began the famous helpline from this church, and the original phone is still there.
What I most love about this church is that it is so beautiful. There are some modern features like this circular altar installed by Henry Moore in 1987, but just look at the great wide open space, these magnificent pillars, and above all, the fantastic dome.
Wren's friend and contemporary, Dr. Robert Hooke, had, in 1675, come up with a theory of how to construct the perfect dome.
And this was how he did it. He took a chain, and he showed that if you hung it between 2 points, it always hangs in a particular shape called a catenary, which gives the same tension all the way along the chain. Hooke's brilliant idea was that if you turn this upside down, there we are, then you'd have the perfect shape for an arch, because you'd have the same compression all the way along the arch. And if you then just imagine turning this through a vertical axis, then you would have a dome.
Hooke's secular science enabled Wren to create beautiful spiritual architecture, best seen in his most famous masterpiece, St Paul's Cathedral, whose iconic dome still dominates London today. Wren produced several designs for St Paul's, all of which featured some kind of dome.
This is the great model. It's a wonderful thing, isn't it? It's been around for 300 years. This was, in fact, Wren's second complete design for St Paul's Cathedral. It was his favourite design, and when it was rejected, it must have been one of the great disappointments of his career. Gordon, do you think he was addicted to circular spaces?
Well, I think he was obsessed by the idea of a dome. He'd been to Paris in 1665 to escape the plague and had seen a number of new dome churches there. And as soon as he came back to England, he proposed a tall dome in place of the tower on the medieval cathedral just before the cathedral was burnt down in the Great Fire. And then in several designs after the fire, he proposed a central crossing dome. This is the largest proposal, the largest design. And the dome he proposes here is actually bigger than the one he eventually built. It's nearly as big as the dome of St. Peter's in Rome.
The dome that was built produced an accidental acoustic phenomenon which gives the interior gallery its name.
This is the Whispering Gallery. There are fabulous views both of the floor of the cathedral and the dome above. But I want to find out whether you really can talk around the outside. So I've asked Gordon to go exactly across the other side. Gordon, you haven't got a microphone, have you?
No, I haven't.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you very well, Alan.
Did Wren plan this extraordinary effect?
No, I don't think he did. He sloped this wall in for structural reasons, although the outside columns are vertical, and it's had the effect of capturing the sound as it runs around the interior.
Can you really whisper?
Yes, you can. You can hear a whisper all the way round.
It is amazing, isn't it? It really is a whispering gallery.
Yes.
That's amazing. I've never been up here before, and I've always heard that when other people come, there are hundreds of people and you can't hear a thing, but with just two of us, it's a doddle. Okay, time for a pint.
Wren was fascinated with religious buildings and once remarked that for him, architecture aims at eternity. St Paul's has certainly survived the centuries, even through London's second Great Fire, the Blitz of World War II. But many other churches were not so lucky. Tourists from around the world flock into London every year to see its famous churches, especially those designed by Sir Christopher Wren. Sadly, the Blitz destroyed many of them, including St Mary Le Bow on Cheapside, which was hit by German bombs on the 10th of May 1941. The external walls of the church survived, as did the steeple. At 239.5 feet, it was Wren's grandest, and probably was the reason why St Mary Le Bow was the costliest of the new city churches. And it has another famous feature.
These are the Bow bells, arguably the most famous bells in London. In medieval times there was just one, a curfew bell, but now there are 12. And that one in the middle there, that is the Great Bell of Bow. It weighs more than 2,000 kilograms, 2 tons. These bells famously rang Dick Whittington back into London, and he became Lord Mayor several times. When there wasn't any traffic, you could hear these bells 3 or 4 miles away in Hackney Marshes. And indeed, anyone who is born within the sound of Bow bells is a true Cockney.
Today, the bells are rung every week by a group of bell ringers who work in the city.
Do you think I could have a go?
Come and try it.
Are you sure?
It's more difficult than it looks, but we're just introducing slowly to it.
I hope so.
So nice and relaxed, and we're going to start.
Okay.
Look 2.
Tell me when to pull.
Your hands will be taken up by the rope.
They will?
And then a nice
Am I going to be taken up by the rope?
I hope not.
Right.
Look 2. Trouble's going. She's gone.
London's church bells have called people to worship for hundreds of years. Over time, Christian churches have been joined by religious buildings of many different faiths. To begin with, many of those worshippers practiced in secret because of religious intolerance. No wonder then that some of London's places of worship are hidden away.
This street goes by the curious name of Bevis Marks, and just a few yards off it is this synagogue, the Spanish-Portuguese synagogue, built in 1701. The reason it's discreetly tucked away is that Jews were not then allowed to build on the main thoroughfares. This synagogue is the oldest in Europe that is still in continuous use today.
Today, the synagogue is still hidden away, dwarfed by modern office buildings.
The really special thing about this synagogue is that it's hardly changed at all in 300 years. Some people say that's because it's so hard to find. The architect was a master builder called Joseph Avis, who was a friend and contemporary of Robert Hooke and Christopher Wren. Indeed, they all worked on the same buildings, which is probably why this looks so much like a lot of those Wren churches, notably St Stephen Walbrook. It's a wonderful big open space with lots of light and wonderful columns, in this case holding up the gallery.
This interior remains beautiful after hundreds of years, but these pews are even older survivors from the congregation's first synagogue, founded in 1656 in nearby Church Lane.
This is the reading platform, the tevar, from where the service is conducted. And a major part of the service is the reading of the law, the Torah, from the scrolls, wonderful scrolls which are kept in the ark, down there at the focal point of the synagogue, beautifully decorated with the 10 Commandments in Hebrew above them.
Bevis Mark Synagogue is on the border between the City of London and the East End, which was the original home of the Jewish population. Indeed, you can still see signs on some of the buildings. The East End of London has seen successive waves of immigration, and this is reflected in the religious buildings there.
This building here on the corner of Brick Lane was actually built in 1743 as a Protestant church for the Huguenots who were running away from religious persecution in France. Then in 1898 it changed to become a synagogue for all the Jews, and in 1976 it changed again to become a mosque for all the people from Bangladesh who now live in the area, which just goes to show how the changes in a place of worship tell you something about the evolution of the area.
And the very number of churches in an area can also tell us about how London was growing. Victorian London saw an explosion in population, and so new churches were built by the hundred, leaving London a legacy of grand 19th century buildings. When Roman Catholics were allowed to build their own churches, they put up such spectacular buildings as the Brompton Oratory and Westminster Cathedral. These churches are ornate and highly decorated inside, rather like churches from the Orthodox Eastern tradition of Christianity. Here in Chiswick is the UK's first purpose-built Russian Orthodox church. The dazzling interior of the crypt follows the tradition of rich and abundant decoration. Work began on the church 10 years ago, and its traditional Eastern Russian exterior was finished early on in the project. However, above the crypt, in the main body of the church, the builders are still hard at work, but they seem to have left some curious holes in the wall. I asked Douglas Norwood, the architect, to explain.
Douglas, I've noticed that there are a lot of holes in the walls, like sort of pigeonholes. Are they a mistake?
No, that's not a mistake. The plasters would like us to think it's a mistake because they would like to fill them in. But they are the elements of a resonator.
Resonators? Is that for the music?
It's because the Russian Orthodox Church has these large screens in front of the sanctuary, which is called an iconostasis. And the priest, a lot of the time, is behind that screen. And unless we can control the acoustics very well in the building, the congregation can't hear what he's saying.
But they didn't have breeze blocks in Russia, so what did they use?
Clay water pots.
Oh, really?
Which were bedded on their sides in the thickness of the wall.
With the mouth sticking out?
With the mouth sticking out, yes.
Oh, wonderful. So it's a bit like blowing over the top of a milk bottle.
Exactly the same thing. That's the effect that you have.
It's amazing that this old technology is being used again in this modern context. But to create the church's most crucial and traditional element, they've used the very latest technology. This dome has sat on top of the church right next to the busy M4 for 10 years, but its striking blue colour looks brand new. And that's because the tiles are coated with an enamel that amazingly sheds molecules to clean itself. As Wren used Hooke's mathematical formulae, today traditional Russian domes are made using space-age technology. Immigration has meant that traditional architectural forms from around the world have been recreated here in modern London. But perhaps none is quite as surprising as this little piece of Thailand in the middle of leafy Wimbledon. This is the Wat Buddha Padipa, a Thai Buddhist temple, and in fact it's the only Thai temple built in Europe. The temple was designed with a traditional Thai roof known as a Jaturamukh and was begun in 1979.
The most amazing thing about this temple is the decoration inside. And one of the chaps who did it was Pang. Pang, how long did it take to decorate this temple?
We started in 1984 and finished by 1992.
Right, 8 years.
Yes.
Long time. And how many painters did this?
25 altogether.
Really? All from Thailand?
All from the Fine Art University.
Oh, tell me about the painting up on that wall.
We have to introduce the people to the story of the Buddha,
Right.
starting from the birth of Buddha, which is that one,
Right.
and then following by renunciation when he decided to live the worldly life,
Right.
searching for enlightenment, which is that one. And then the rest of his life over there is when he passed away. You can see the big picture there,
Right.
passing away, and also start teaching.
Right, I see. Okay. But now tell me, you have Margaret Thatcher here and George Bush and Superman. This is not traditional Thai.
It is not, but it's interesting that we started painting when Mrs. Margaret Thatcher was Prime Minister.
Thai temple murals traditionally feature figures and scenes from everyday life, but I was amazed to see so many Western icons painted in a modern style. A wonderful mix of ancient East meeting modern West.
As London becomes ever more multicultural, places of worship are being built in an ever-increasing variety of styles. Many of them following traditional designs, but constructed using modern materials and methods. 300 years ago, after the Great Fire, Christopher Wren built 52 churches, essentially defining the City of London. But even in today's much more secular age, there are still parts of this city that are being built for faith.